So recently, Yoshi posted on the Discord and he basically said there's no update coming in December. Well, he didn't exactly say that. He said it's very unlikely for the update to come in December and that it's much more likely for the big content update to be coming in January. And of course, those news were a little sad for everybody wishing for a big update for Christmas. But that's the headliner that we've got today. If you weren't expecting an update in December, well, you should tamper your expectations because in Valve speech, it basically means there will be no update in December. For anybody that knows Valve, if they say, hey, it's probably not going to happen, I'm assuming it's definitely not going to happen. But it's very interesting because this is a new era of Valve that actually is communicating. Like, Cryptic, you've been playing Dota casting for a long time. Have you ever seen Valve talk about updates like this and be like, hey, be on Discord, be like, we're going to push an update. We're hoping to have it in December. And then they're like, oh, actually, it's not going to be December. I mean, just Ringmaster comes to mind. Didn't they say Ringmaster is going to come like by the end of X year? And then it actually took like forever.
Yeah, I mean, in an era of Valve communicating, this is pretty peak. I'll be honest. It's not something we really get. So I I'm very happy to see some level of communication, but yeah, when it comes to
Yeah.
Valve saying like, "Hey, it's not likely to come out right now," I'll believe them. So yeah, I feel like it's going to be the 2026 January update, not the 2025 December update at this point, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And for everybody tuning in, watching the video, well, you might be like, this is an awkward setting. I've never seen Deathy with rkryptic. I've never seen this kind of like imagery that looks like, what is this bear pit channel just coming out of nowhere? And well, we're launching a new podcast called The Bear Pit. And it's based around the theme of the Bear Pit, which is an area canonically in the Deadlock verse where Bebop defeated Lash. It's the underground fighting arena where I think that the only characters that we know that have fought in there for sure are Bebop, Lash, and Kali, which was a Neon Prime character. So actually no longer in the game, but had the Viper model or like a version of the Viper model. But anyway, it's this kind of cool podcast in this environment, and let us know what you think about the art or if you want anything changed. We're still kind of in the early stages, but you can expect an episode weekly. We haven't
Woo!
determined the upload kind of day. We're recording this on Tuesday, so it'll probably be like a day or two after that, depending. But weekly episode, and we're gonna talk kind of all things Deadlock. Balance, like what are people thinking about the game, like where the game is going, like what do we think about the developments, like any tournaments that are happening, the esports scene, Reddit complaints. I mean, we're gonna hit it all. Drama, maybe even. Who
Yeah.
knows?
We could spend episodes on Reddit complaints. Really, truly.
Oh
They're
yeah.
never ending. But the cool thing about Deadlock right now is this, like you mentioned, I come from Dota, so this is something that it really reminds me of the early days of Dota, like 2012, 2000, maybe even
Yeah.
2011 if you were in early enough, but like 2012 era, 2013, where like Valve was so hands on with the project and it felt really cool to just be part of it because you just see the
Hmm.
constant updates, the changing to the game. Um, it's very fun, just genuinely as a player, but to be involved in a bunch of different areas of it, yeah, it's gonna be great. I'm loving it.
Yeah, it's definitely a unique moment in Valve's history, I think, just in general,
Yeah,
in the sense that I don't really think, like, I think even with Dota, so I wasn't really involved in Dota super early. Like I played my first Dota game in 2013, which is very early, all things
that's
considered. But
pretty early.
I was just like, I was just like a teenager. Like in 2013, I was like 15. I had no idea what was happening, so I was just a guy just playing Earthshaker for fun. And I don't remember how Valve approached it necessarily, but it feels like, right now Valve is communicating on Discord. They're reading the forums. The game has kind of developed with community feedback, and it's very interesting. And I was seeing some comments that are kind of funny because I was streaming yesterday with my title as like, hey, the update's going to be delayed because I think a lot of people don't see these because like it's not like Yoshi made a public announcement. He just like typed a message on the
He just
Discord. Like
responded
that's
to a
the weird
random
thing.
comment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He just like he's lurking. He sees a comment. He'll just be like, oh, I'll just respond to this. He's not going to make like an announcement at everyone. Hey, we're probably delaying the update. He just responds to a random comment and then kind of like word of mouth spreads it. And so I was talking about it on my stream, and there's a few people, this was a minority, I want to make it clear, that were like, I'm really disappointed in the Valve development team. No major content update for the past 4 months. And that we're acting kind of like entitled. And I think a lot of people forget that we're in a playtest
Yeah.
that is free to play that we literally cannot spend money on. Like, I would love to give Valve my money. I can't.
It's such a
I
funny
can't.
way to look at it. You're like, man, I would love to help the development process along and like help fund your game, but Valve's just like, no, 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 we're good, we're good. We'll do it, on Valve time as always. And I think I think you're correct that it was definitely like a minority of people kind of responding in a negative way. Like I can talk about my own
Mhm.
community that I have like of people that I play Deadlock with, and everyone I talked to was like, yeah, like kind of expected. Like if you've worked with Valve before or played any of their games, like it's very rare something gets delivered early, let alone or like on time. It's usually like slight delay, just slight delays.
Yeah.
And this is the time of the year where Valve loves to take their holiday vacation. Like the company basically just
Yeah.
leaves for 2 weeks. So it either had to come out this week or it's being delayed, right? There was really
Yeah.
like no way around that. And Valve is I mean, based on Yoshi's message, it's very much they just are perfectionists. Like Valve will not release
Mhm.
something that they're not happy with if they don't think is like polished enough for the game. And Deadlock's getting to a fairly polished state. So if it's unpolished in their eyes, uh, it probably just needs a little bit more time to cook. And I have faith in these devs. They have made so many great decisions up to this point. So yeah, I'm okay with it. Give them till January. It's gonna be a sick start of the year.
Yeah. And I think, you just kind of sparked something in me by saying they've made so many great decisions. Is I think you're 100% correct, but I think something that we should discuss in another episode, and stay tuned for that, is what are the best decisions that they've made and what are the worst decisions they've made, because they've also made mistakes that are very like they've made some
Ranked.
major mistakes as well. We could talk about ranked, we could talk about all sorts of things, but there's definitely been major mistakes in,
Yeah.
kind of Deadlock's development cycle. And there's also been, incredible decisions. And I think that would be really interesting to discuss. But I think that you're 100% right that, it is reaching a level of polish. Like, if you think about Deadlock super early on. So when did you start playing Deadlock?
Before the NDA, like when it was still private, I was still playing. So I played a lot, all the way up until ranked release. Ranked is when I actually took a break, but uh,
Okay.
up until then, I probably put in like a few hundred hours. So it
Hmm.
was it was I don't know, I'm so bad with dates. I really am. But yeah, it was a few months before the actual NDA came, like the I
Like,
guess I
do
don't
you
even it
remember how many
wasn't really
people
an
were in the
NDA.
Discord when you joined the Discord?
Not a lot. A few thousand maybe.
Okay, then you probably joined like late May, early June,
It was before
maybe mid
June,
June.
yeah.
Okay.
It was either first week of June maybe. That sounds about right.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so a couple weeks after me, I joined about mid-May,
Okay.
roughly. Um, and early on, it was kind of like, I mean, extremely unpolished.
Yeah.
It was still very buggy, to be honest. Like the game right now is still buggy, but like back then it was like another level of buggy. Like there was just a lot of things that would go wrong all the time. And the balance, the thing about it is like the balance back then was like horrible, but like nobody really knew because everyone sucked, right? In the sense that nobody was good at the game yet. Like now I have almost 4,000 hours in the game, which is kind of insane to say that I have almost 4,000 hours in a
In a
game that's in a
playtest.
playtest. But regardless, and there's people. I'm not alone, right?
Oh yeah.
There's at least like there's got to be at least like a few hundred people that have over 3,000 hours, easily.
Yeah.
Maybe even a few thousand people that are there. But anyway, all that to say that early on it was kind of like super chaotic. Like they would do changes like all over the place. They didn't really care about polish because frankly, it was just like a few thousand people that were playing. Like I remember when I first joined, like there was basically like 10 to 20 matches going on at a
Yeah.
time, and that was
The
it.
the
You know?
watch tab was like a couple tabs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
And
could
it's like
see exactly who was playing.
everyone knew each other. Like it
Yeah.
didn't really matter ranked. It had this like cool kind of like really playtest vibe. And I think now it's like kind of a playtest still, but also kind of not. I think what they're playtesting really is general community sentiment as well as overall balance.
Yeah,
Because it doesn't really feel like they're playtesting big changes anymore. They're more taking care of those internally, and then kind of like, I mean, obviously, like, like they're still willing to change things if it doesn't work out. But when it looks at like all the major updates we've had this year, the item rework, um, the 3 lanes, like all of these things, like the 6 new heroes, etc. All of these things just kind of like came to us, and then they got balanced. So all of these updates, when they got released, were not balanced. There was
not even
major issues
remotely.
with 3 lanes, major issues with the item rework, because while it was a step in the right direction, like a lot of items just like were way too strong, and a lot of items were just kind of weak. And the 6 new heroes were also kind of like, I mean, they were actually not that poorly balanced, I think, but it's still not ideal.
I will say to give them credit, to MOBAs in general are so complex that like it is
Mhm.
really hard to exactly put something in the game that's balanced. And if you
Oh yeah.
come from any MOBA, you know this. Like a hero comes out and they're like, we're pretty sure this is balanced, and it's either like a 20% win rate hero or a
Yeah.
65% win rate hero, and you're like,
Oh yeah.
we tried, we tried. But to get 6 heroes into the game in a week, and they're all pretty good, like a little tweaks here and there, but for the most part, it wasn't nothing egregious, which is impressive. The items, I do agree, there were some hiccups with some of the items, but everything's been trending the right direction. And I think that's what, like you said, we'll definitely dive into some of the major development decisions that they've made to get to this point.
Mhm.
But yeah, I
Mhm.
agree. I think they've been doing an incredibly good job, and I will say I'm excited for what they're doing. Like right now, like the patch seems to be pretty enormous that they have planned. If they can delayed it and they want to polish it, it also just makes me
Mhm.
really excited to see what all is going to be included. So we're
Yeah.
going to start the year off really well, but one of the things that we did you did kind of touch on was how things can like how some of the major decisions that they made can affect the game, and there's been some pretty big changes just in the last like patch, like not major patch,
Mhm.
but pretty big changes conceptually to the game just in the November update, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would say that the last, like the November update that we had, as far as like, it was called a small balance patch, which
Yeah.
is always like, it's a little ironic because realistically, because I've said this a lot on stream, but I was kind of like not a believer, but like I was kind of pushing the narrative that we haven't really had a dedicated balance patch in a really long time, because most of the patches that we had were like hot fixes, like in the sense that like, hey, let's just like Victor does 5 less damage, like some small little number tweaks, right? But if you look at, for example, a game like Dota, when they have balance patches, like they have systemic changes very often,
Yes.
right? That'll change the systems of the game. Like, oh, hey, you've got bounty runes are added, you've got the wisdom runes, like adding things to the game that fundamentally change the game, the way the game is played, and shake up the meta a lot. What we had content patches.
Yeah.
So item rework was kind of a balance patch in a way, but really it was more of a content patch. Like, oh, hey, a bunch of new artwork, like new items, like things like that. The new heroes, like every time you add these things, like it does change the game, but it's not a balance patch. So I think the November patch was a true balance patch, like we haven't had in a long time. I'm thinking like we haven't had one like that in 2025. I think you'd have to go back to 2024 to see patches of this magnitude, probably even pre NDA, when a lot of things were being changed. And you know, like the Walker changes, like are huge.
Yeah.
Like the 4.8K investment spikes are extremely controversial. Apparently, like some people love them, some people hate them. Like
Yeah.
Reddit is talking about them constantly. Let's just put it that way.
At least daily.
Um,
Yeah.
how's that felt for you? Like, I'm curious about your perspective, because I'm very aware that I have an extremely niche perspective, because I'm playing in like the top lobbies, like I've like a shit ton of hours. So
Yeah.
how's that been for you?
So, for people who don't know, like I am high ascendant, so I'm not in Eternus. I was back in January, but I took a long break. Uh, I will say the chain, like if we just want to talk the power spike of the 4.8K investment, I personally think it is positive. Like, I know there's a lot of people who are, maybe not so stoked on it, but I do think it adds build variety to heroes in a way, whereas certain heroes previously didn't get that much out of investment into certain categories, and there was not really a way around it. But this could open up builds for certain heroes. It could also pigeonhole heroes into certain builds, and I think that's where like the balance kind of has to be like tweaked here and there. But I do
Mm.
like heroes that can build a hybrid of, maybe a little bit of investment into gun, or a little bit investment into spirit, or a little bit of investment into vitality. And it doesn't feel bad to be like, I have to get this item this game. And that's all it's giving me is like maybe you buy a reactive berry and you're like, I'm getting reactive berry because it's necessary, but you don't want to invest into something else. But like now it kind of pushes you like, if I spend a little bit more, I get quite a bit more reward for it. So I don't know. I like
Yeah.
the idea behind it. I'm not sure if it's like
Mhm.
100% well executed, but that's the idea with the playtest,
Mhm.
right? Like they implement this idea that they have, and they're gonna kind of iterate on it and balance it as we go. But generally, I think it's pretty good for the game.
I would agree. I think that there's a few things to consider. The first thing to consider is how do you balance the relative spikes? Now, there is kind of an inherent, not really a problem, but more of a game design thing that I don't think they'll ever change really. But it's just the way that the different itemization categories work. Okay, so if we compare, for example, spirit, weapon, and vitality.
Hmm.
So a lot of people have been saying that the spirit one is OP.
Yeah.
Now, there's kind of like this dilemma that the developers have to deal with, which I'm sure that they're very aware of this. But Deadlock is such a unique game, and I think that they've kind of always um, had this idea that hey, like Spirit is stronger early, falls off a little bit late. Like you see this with certain items that really start to counter Spirit. Now, I don't think Spirit actually falls off that hard late, to be honest. We can talk about that, but um, I think that's kind of the idea, and the systems contribute to that because when you look at weapon or vitality investment, it's a percentage of your base. So for those of you that don't know how it works, basically weapon damage investment. So the 4.8k gives you 49% extra weapon damage. Now that weapon damage is determined from your base weapon damage. And your base weapon damage is calculated from your base weapon damage, like base, and then boons, and I believe golden statues as well. So if you get
Hmm.
weapon damage from golden statues, I think it works on your base weapon damage. Although I would need to double check that. I'm not 100%, so don't quote me on that. Um, and so naturally, getting 49% weapon damage at 5 minutes is worse than getting 49% weapon damage at 25 minutes. Whereas getting spirit, I think right now you get 45 spirit for the
It's just
4.8k investment.
flat.
It's just flat. So it's getting 45 spirit is just as good at 5 minutes as it is at 25 or 45 minutes. It doesn't actually matter. The only thing that affects it is like if you get boundless, then you can kind of like have another multiplier on top of that. But that is kind of like something that is difficult to balance because you don't want like spirit to just like fall off a cliff when you get to late game. So kind of needs to be like OP early because otherwise it'd be shit late kind of. So it's this weird thing where maybe they just need to tone down the early 4.8k spirit investment a little bit or look at other ways. I mean, they've been nerfing spirit consistently for a long time, including the cooldowns in the recent patch.
Yeah.
Um, and people also freak out the moment like we are even close to a gun meta. I don't know if you.
Yeah. It's so funny how they have to teeter that line because the moment it's a gun meta, everyone's like, I hate
Yeah,
this. I'm so tired
yeah,
of X hero
yeah,
winning every
yeah,
game, right? It just never
mm,
ends. But
yeah,
there is the other side of the coin, which you said, like if Spirit's good early, but it also becomes like really good late, suddenly it's like every game is just a burst meta, and you're just like getting popped by like pockets or uh I mean
mm.
really like pockets the one that kind of would abuse these types of scenarios, but it doesn't feel good either way.
That is really like a big one. Mina, Mirage,
Oh
like
god,
right
Mina.
now, like Mirage, once you hit like the 4.8k, like I'm laning against Mirage, and I'm like, okay, if like by the time he gets 4.8k, we haven't won the lane, like I'm out.
Just
I'm
even
out of
they just
here.
rush the 4 spirit
Mm.
items now is the thing, right? Or the 4.8k in spirit is what I'm seeing, like improved
Yeah.
spirit, QSR, and like +1,
And
like
some
one
people
other
just go
1600.
QSR Surge of Power.
Yeah,
Some people just go QSR Surge of Power too. You can do that.
yeah.
But yeah, there's multiple ways to go about it.
It's just yeah. It's really good. So that I mean, that's the thing, right? Like you said, sometime maybe tweaking the amount of that investment could be good, which obviously
Mm.
is something we're looking at. Like Valve's a very data-driven company. Like they always have been very
Yeah,
data-driven, and they have the numbers. They're looking at this like, okay, like this stuff maybe a
they
little
definitely
bit
have
too
them. Yeah.
good. So I have faith in them to adjust it. I'm not too worried. But one of the other things from the patch,
Hmm.
you mentioned the Walker changes was
Yeah.
ridiculous. And I'm actually curious, not
Hmm.
only the follow-up patch where they like change the how tanky some of them are, first, second, and versus third, but also how they moved the flex slots for like the eighth time, right? Like we've had so
Hmm.
many iterations of flex slots being, four flex slots versus three on different types of objectives. So I'm
Yep.
curious how you feel about the current flex slot being tied exclusively to walkers now.
Um, the biggest advantage of this current flex slot system is that it's extremely friendly to new players. That is by far the biggest advantage to
Yeah.
me, and it's something that I consider very often when I give feedback on the game and when I talk about the game. Is I think a lot of people are kind of in their little bubble of like, hey, I want to have fun, and I have 3,000 hours in the game, and I want the game to be balanced around the competitive scene that has 24 players that are playing in it. And it's like, okay, well, I think that, and I've said this before, I think balancing around competitive and high level play makes sense to an extent, because the very high level players will see issues before the average player sees them, but eventually it'll affect the average player too. So it makes sense to listen to high level players to an extent. It shouldn't be an echo chamber, and you shouldn't listen just to them, just to be clear. But I think it's very important that the game is fun, enjoyable, and approachable as much as possible. And that's why I'm a big fan when they add like heroes that are fairly easy to execute. Like I think it's important to have fairly easy heroes, as well as like very high skill ones. Like they added Mita and Doorman, some of the arguably like highest skill cap heroes, but kind of in the same patch they added Victor, and I'm like that's fantastic. Like Victor, like if you're a new player, kind of low rank, fairly forgiving hero. Got AOE spells. Like you don't really need like incredible execution. But anyway, all that to go to the kind of like walker change and the flex lock change is I think that it makes a lot of sense for each walker to give a flex slot because it's really intuitive. Like it's
Yeah.
like, hey, you kill a walker, get a flex slot. Extremely easy to understand. Before it was kind of like you had to solve this like math equation. Uh, so I like the flex slot change personally. Now the walker changes are a whole, other pack of I guess gummy bears that we can unpack if you want. But as far as the flex law change, I like it.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's it's funny you call it a puzzle because it kind of was previously. You're like, we have to do all these specific things to get our flex slots previously, and like sometimes
Mhm.
you end up getting a walker before your guardians, and so you get a
Yeah,
like technically the second flex slot before your first one,
yeah,
and then it's like, yeah, it was a little bit convoluted. Now you also just have more base item slots, which is great, and that helps with the 4.8K investment categories technically,
hmm
right? So
hmm
like in that regard, it's nice. Um, yeah, I'm not sure if you want to talk about the walker change where like the first walker is weak, second walker about the same kind of from the previous patch.
Walker is still slightly easier, I think, but
Yeah,
not much.
yeah, and
Like,
then third walker is a beefcake.
yeah, yeah, we can talk about it. So, I mean, the reason why they made that change, I think, is pretty simple. I actually gave a decent amount of feedback on this topic. Is okay. So so when they made the walkers, so they shipped the initial update. The walkers were all quite tanky, quite hard to kill, and also the fireballs do a lot of damage. Now people have kind of
Yeah.
gotten used to the fireballs. I mean, they're still threatening, but like you've learned that really need to dodge them. Like I've learned that you really need to like be very careful of the fireballs, which I think is their purpose. Is like you should be afraid of these AOE attacks from objectives. You shouldn't just like tank them and not care. So I think missions succeed there. But when they shipped the update initially, the mid game was really awkward, and death ball. There was like a really strong death ball meta that spawned in kind of when the update happened. It was due to a lot of factors, a lot of which have been nerfed. Kills, for example, they've nerfed kill assist souls, so you don't get as much. They've nerfed trophy collector, which was kind of enabling the death ball meta, which wasn't a problematic item before. But since they changed the soul splitting, and we can talk about the soul splitting
Yeah.
changes next or whatever, because there's a lot to talk about there. But since they changed that, then it's incentivized grouping up a little bit more. And so they had to nerf these other things to kind of keep Deathball in check. And one thing that's very clear, and obviously you know this because you've played Dota, but every time that there's a Deathball meta in a Valve game like Dota, for example, they're like, no, like we have to fix it as fast as possible because nobody likes playing Deathball in any MOBA. It's just not fun. People want to feel like there's weight to their map decisions other than just go fight in their jungle. So the Walker changes like contributed to the Deathball meta originally because they were so tanky and so hard to take that you basically had no choice but to just go for fights anyway, because pushing the Walker was not an option before 20 minutes, which meant that the only options that you had were fighting in their jungle. That was basically the only thing that you could do, or do the Urn, which also led to fights.
Yeah.
So making the first Walker easier to kill gives you a counterplay to Deathball, where if the enemy team is just 5-manning in your jungle, you can actually kill the first Walker alone. You don't like, if you have enough, if you have 30 seconds at the Walker alone and you're a hero like Seven or Wraith or Infernus or any hero that does significant building damage, you will kill the Walker. And I think that's great.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is. I will say that there's a lot of kind of changes with walkers that we've seen over the past year, and I like this one quite a bit. But you mentioned one of the other things that like we kind of want to talk about in the patch notes as well. So I'm kind of curious. Well, actually, do you want to talk about laning first? Because I do think laning also changed pretty dramatically in the last patch.
I think they're very related. I think they're more related than you might think. So we can
Okay.
talk about both laning and the soul splitting changes because to me, they are kind of one and the same part of a bigger kind of like shift. And I think that this can be educational in the sense that, you know, I am going to make videos on this. I've made a laning video already, but a lot has changed about how you should approach laning. And a big part of that is the new soul splitting changes.
Okay. So that's why I was curious because I know it does it like the way that you share souls in the lane and for how long and like holding waves for people like that. This has been something that has become kind of uh like essential to playing Deadlock
Yeah.
over the last like several months. But the way lane splitting has working now and the way soul splitting is working now, it has left open some questions of I mean, I don't want to say tri lanes, but like I feel like there's not that far away from seeing potential like tri lane meta or uh like more priority put on like not it always being
Yeah.
static 2-2-2, I guess.
Mhm.
So I'm curious how you feel
That's
about the
100%
lane
correct.
changes and the soul splits.
So first of all, Stella has joined the recording. This is one of
Oh,
my cats. I
I
have
was
two,
I was gonna
for those
ask
that
about
don't
her.
know.
So beautiful.
But yeah, her name is Stella, and yeah, she likes to bother me when I do things. So anyway, she'll be part of the episode, and that's okay. Um, as far as the laning itself, it has changed significantly. So first of all, the healing trooper change is very significant, as well as the way that the orbs are. So the whole kind of like laning dynamic now does benefit like interaction with kind of the other laners a little bit more in the sense that, hey, you should kill the healing trooper kind of last. You know, you get kind of like rewarded for trading a little bit. The tower is really like much tankier early as well,
Yeah.
which kind of changes the approach that you can have, which doesn't make it feel as bad if you're like a really weak laner. Now, I will say the game is still fairly snowbally, especially at a high level where you can just, you know, you can get super snowballed. Part of that is kind of how the laning stage works, but also part of that is just like the people don't understand how to abuse the new laning thing. So with the new soul splitting changes, okay, the moment that your lane is no longer productive, and this is something that I talked about in one of my recent academy classes. I can do a little academy shout out later in the episode for those of you that don't know what it is. But I talked about this in the class, and I said the moment your lane is no longer productive, and what I mean by productive is you can't get their tower or you can't get a kill, like you can't progress the game forward, you should leave. Like there is really no incentive for two people to stay in a lane that is no longer productive. You should just leave one person. That person can play passive and farm and whatever, and the other person should just go roam to another lane.
Yeah.
And for most of you watching, you know, average rank is Archon. The thing about this is it puts the you know, it kind of makes it so that the enemies have to respond accordingly to what you're doing. And if they don't choose the correct response, well, they will lose. And very often they won't choose the correct response. They won't know what to do. They won't realize it's happening fast enough, so they won't be able to match your rotation, or they won't be able to like be aggressive enough to push the tower right away or take enough of your resources. And so very often by just being in the driver's seat and being like, hey, this lane is not going anywhere, I'm just gonna go to another lane. Like, and you should just go to a lane that you can get a kill in. So ideally, look at the healths and see is there anybody that's half, and then go to that lane. You can take the TP to go to the other lane. You can just walk to mid lane or take a jump pad, and that's a lot of people are not doing that, and they really should.
Yeah, so I was gonna say the main reason being for this was that the soul splitting for two heroes
Yeah.
was nerfed, but it was massively buffed down the line. So three,
Yes.
4, 5, 6, way more efficient. Now you're not like heavily punished. Like previously, you lost like
Yep.
was it 40% of the souls if you had three people in a lane or more, and now you lose
Um,
5% or something. It's like almost the
you
same.
lose 4%, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
it's almost
almost
the same.
nothing. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's ridiculous. The difference between two people in lane
Mhm.
versus one or three is 10%
It's
from
kind of whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. So that's where you're saying like
No.
if you're in a lane that's not doing anything, you might as well rotate because you might be able to get something else
Yeah.
done in another lane, and you're not sacrificing 20 to 30% souls that you were in
Yeah.
the previous patch, right?
Yeah. 100%. That's exactly it. And I think a lot of people still haven't adapted to that. People are kind of slow at adapting to this. And obviously it is kind of, I guess, part of my responsibility to educate people on this and get
How
people to
dare
do
you?
this in their games. But yeah, people are a little slow to adapt on this. I was slow to make content about it because it's not something that I realized that fast as well. I mean, I thought about it, but I didn't execute on it until recently. But now the moment that I lose a lane, I'm like, I'm just gonna go somewhere else, like if I'm a hero that can.
Yeah,
Now
sure.
if you're playing as 7, you should be the one that stays in your lane, and if you've got like a lash with you, hey, I mean, the lash should be the one that rotates. So the couple things there. But yeah, I think that that's the main thing about laning that people don't really get. And another thing I want to touch on with the soul splitting change is a lot of people don't understand why they would buff the soul splitting for 5 or 6 people, because they're like, doesn't that just favor death ball meta? I wonder if you have any thoughts about why they would want to do that. Because I mean, I have like, I'm 99% sure I know why they did it, but I'm wondering if you would have any guesses.
Comeback mechanic. So I think
Okay.
if you are a team that is ahead, you should not be so like egregiously punished for grouping up and trying to like take an objective, because the other team, they can
Mhm.
stall the map. They can stall like a walker depending on what type of heroes your high ground push for like a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and in 20 to 25 minutes into the game, this is thousands of souls that you're giving up on the map that the other team is just free farming because they have someone split
Mhm.
pushing or taking a jungle camp. So I think part of it is like it eliminates some of like that potential comeback, which is like favorable to Deathball. But I do think that that's not a good way to enable comebacks into the game. I think like a good way to enable comebacks is to allow a team to, yeah, they can still kind of be efficient on the map, but if they take a fight, they get rewarded by the kill bounties or like chipping kills off of a team that is in front
Mhm.
of them, right? So like that
Mhm.
was my initial thought, is it was to like not allow a team to just kind of stall out and then just pull a bunch of souls off the map, and if they die, they're like, oh well, my hero died, but I gained like 6,000 souls off their lead over the last 2 minutes, because they were grouped.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's part of it, probably. That's almost certainly part of it. And I think that you do want to like encourage interaction and for you guys to like look to make plays and be aggressive as a team. I think another part of it, which I think I've never seen anyone like, or publicly, like I've talked about it with some people and like DMs and stuff like that, but I've never seen like a video made about that. But I think it is kind of a comeback mechanic in a way, in the sense that, so let's imagine the scenario. You're down 20k, enemy team gets rejuve. What are you doing in those scenarios? You're stuck in your base most of the time, right?
Yeah,
When you're stuck in your base, you're splitting souls with 4, 5, 6 people. So you would lose so much before if you were just stuck in your
true.
base. You would just get owned. Like you would, the soul. I don't know if you've noticed this in your games, but before, rejuve would almost always result in a massive soul lead, and
Yeah.
now it doesn't always.
It can
And I think
sometimes stay
part of that is the
even.
soul splitting
Yeah,
change.
it can sometimes just like keep the lead even, and that's when it comes down to one team being better than the other,
Mhm.
right? Like if they can't capitalize off the
Yeah,
rejuve and their current soul lead, they shouldn't be rewarded
yeah.
with an even larger soul lead. you know?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Before, like, it was just like stupid how strong Rejuve were. I mean, it was. I mean,
Yeah.
they nerfed it, but like just the ability of keeping people in their base was also OP in and of itself. Um, and so I personally believe that that's probably a fairly big reason why they would want to do that change is because they don't want people to feel like, hey, if you're stuck in your base, you're probably already in a pretty dire situation if you're just stuck in your base. So you shouldn't be getting like super heavily punished um, for that specifically.
It's so funny that like we both thought of it in the same way of like it's to help the team. Well, it's like I guess my idea was the opposite, where it's like it shouldn't reward the team that's turtling too much, but it also like shouldn't punish the team that's ahead too much. So it's an interesting idea.
A lot of variables at play. Like
Yeah.
I think a lot of people when they think of deadlock balance think very black and white, but the game is extremely like has so many different levers of balance and possible things that you can look at or change. And it's you definitely it's not a simple game to balance. And as players, really all we can do is say, hey, I don't like this or I don't like that or this doesn't feel good. And we can give informed feedback, but sometimes it's hard to come up with solutions because the game has so many systems and so many different like ways to fix issues.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the main reasons we just really like the game. Like there it's constantly evolving, even with the patch being like this big patch being delayed. I feel like
Hmm.
people are still figuring out how much has changed since the November update, and it's been like
Yeah.
what 3 weeks ish. I think we're on week 3, so
Hmm.
it's not like it's really even been that.
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah, it hasn't really been that long of a time. So when people are like, "Oh, we're in a content drought." It's like we had one of the largest fundamental changes to the game in
Yeah.
November. At least, like you said,
Hmm.
that we've seen in a very long time. Like there has been somewhat balanced patches, but to change core concepts and even the formulas for how things are calculated, like formula changes are enormous in the scope of a game.
Yeah.
So to see things like soul splitting change, the healing trooper alone changes the way you can play the lane so heavily.
Hmm.
Um, it's cool. It's been a really fun update, and I think we're gonna keep learning more and more about it as things go on. But there is like
Yeah.
a I don't know. I'm just curious, like if there was like one other like was there any other things in the patch that like you really like caught your eye, or was there anything like obviously hero and item balances
Hmm.
aside, those are kind of
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
too nitpicky.
Mm, I think that the general flow of the game feels a little bit better, but overall, I still have mostly the same complaints, which are just that, well, first of all, ending the game is just a little too easy. Like, I know that there might be a lot of people that disagree because they're on like 35, 40-minute, 45-minute games all the time.
Yeah,
Respectfully, it is a skill issue. And
it
eventually,
is.
like even the lower ranks will learn how to end games. But right now at high ranks, like very often the games can just end in 21, 22, 25 minutes. I mean, obviously I'll get 30-minute games like, somewhat often. It's not that bad. But the main problem that I have is really with just the second phase of the patron, where it just feels really like cheap to just have like an entire team just like kill your patron with not you can't do anything. Like
Yeah,
there's literally if they have rejuve and they are pushing your base, there is quite literally nothing you can do to stop them from killing your patron if they just have any hero that deals significant gun damage. Like you are basically screwed if they have an Ivy, if they have a Calico that's playing gun, Wraith, Seven, Infernus, it doesn't matter. Like they will just kill your base. There's nothing you can do. So I hope Valve looks at that part of the gameplay loop. Um, but other than that, I think that the game does feel a little bit better. The rejuve flow feels a little bit better. Now there are issues, balance wise. There's always going to be issues, but I actually like think that this patch is mostly fun. And there's also another topic that we can touch on, which is movement, which has been kind of like a hot topic on Reddit and just in general in the last like month or two.
I feel like we could do a whole episode on movement because it's been changed so many times. Uh
Yeah.
and it is a deep topic. It's movement is like arguably some of the highest skill expression in Deadlock in terms of being able to play certain heroes. Like if you don't
Yeah.
understand movement at a very high level, you are going to struggle to play said heroes specifically. So
Yeah.
yeah, I do think I don't know how you feel personally. I think they are trending in the correct direction with the movement changes. I think some people are a little upset that they're like
Hmm.
nerfing certain aspects of it. But my like quick hot take was that it needs to be still easy enough for new players to where they don't feel like there is this impossible wall in front of them of like, I will never understand movement enough, so I'm gonna not play this game anymore. And like that is
Mhm.
where it's like I like their barrier to entry has to be low enough, but there still needs to be a good skill setting. And I think they're getting pretty close at that.
Yeah. I mean, everything they've done has basically just been to the very upper echelon of movement. As in, I think that if you're kind of like um, an average player, you probably, if you're an average player and you don't spend most of your time on Reddit, you probably haven't felt the movement changes
Mhm.
that much. You've probably felt them a little bit for sure. I mean, you've definitely felt them, but it probably hasn't been like, wow, this is like completely game changing, as some people make it out to be. Now, Valve has to walk this very fine line between Deadlock, in my opinion, has the best feeling movement out of any game right now. Like I've played a lot of games in my life. I've played, TF2 and I loved movement in TF2 and I think that Deadlock movement is a very core component of what makes the game feel so good. Like piloting your hero in Deadlock just feels so good that like it makes you forget about other issues the game has at times, you know? And I think that that's a really big strength of Deadlock and it's important that Valve I mean, I think that they know that and that's why they're kind of like very cautious about the movement nerfs is because they know people really like movement. But then there's the other camp, which is kind of like, well, Deadlock is a MOBA, and you need in a MOBA, in order for macro decisions to matter, there has to be some weight to the way that you position your hero. So if movement is too free and too like crazy, then that removes a lot of the weight from the way that you position your hero, making macro decisions matter a bit less because you can kind of be everywhere.
Mhm.
And that was like the big issue back with the side teleporters, for those of you that remember, or the walker
Oh,
teleporters. Like
yeah.
you could just get around the map like everywhere permanently, and so that was really like you would just like 4 or 5 man a lane, and then instantly you could be on the other side of the map. So if a team got one of the side guardians first, they would just TP to the other side guardian, and then they could also defend theirs because they could just TP back really quickly. So stuff like that is obviously unacceptable, and nobody complained when they removed those. But then where's the line? What about the vent stuns? Like, okay, we don't want vents to be just free escapes all the time. So we're gonna make it so if you get stunned, that makes it so you can't like strafe or anything, so it doesn't make it as free. Okay, what about you get slowed when you get shot now, so you're a little easier to catch, but it's only 10%.
Yeah, I think honestly, the bullet move slow. I saw a lot of people reacting like this is just a huge buff to guns, and I think it is more than that because like every hero has a gun. I think it's more along the lines of what you
Correct.
were
Yeah.
saying, where it's like your positioning has to matter in these types of games. Like you can't
Mhm.
just you can't have like a get out of jail free card because you have superior stamina or something, right? Like there needs to be some
I think
way.
if you itemize for it, it can be okay, but like not by default.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Like there needs to be some way to have, like you said, have weight to your decision making. And if you're gonna decide to play aggressive and out of position, like the other team needs to have a legitimate. They need to legitimately feel like they can punish you for it, rather than just being like,
Yeah.
well, they're just gonna, they're just a fast hero and they're just gonna run away or something, So it's,
Yeah.
I kind of like it. There are still heroes that have that just because that's the way that the hero is designed to be a slippery hero and
Mhm.
difficult to catch, and that's fine. Like
Yeah.
that's totally fine, but it just shouldn't be like an across the board type of thing.
Yeah. And I think that kind of leads into the next thing, which is kind of like movement speed. And now, okay, so I've seen this take on Reddit a lot, and so I want to kind of like clarify this thing or talk about this topic, which is um so a lot of people feel like right now we are in a move speed meta, which is not entirely wrong.
Zooming.
But a lot of people feel, or I've seen this take, I don't know if a lot of people actually feel this way, but I've seen this take a lot, which is, oh, movement speed meta was caused by these other movement nerfs, because since now other parts of movement has been nerfed, movement speed is in turn more important. Um, my opinion on this topic is that it's not entirely true. And the reason, so we were always in a movement speed meta, just to be clear. It's just that people hadn't figured it out yet, first of all. But second of all, is the reason why move speed is so meta is because of the way that slows interact in this game and the way that the move speed items also give you movement speed slow resist.
Yeah.
So if you buy Fleet Foot and Enduring Speed, you have 70% slow resist. So you basically don't really get slowed. And so what is even the point of movement slows? right? Like if if they just build movement, so you want to build slows to counter movement speed, but the movement speed items counter slows. So I feel like there's something there that I feel like Fleetfoot, for example, is just like a overstated item. Like it just has
It's
too much
so
going
good.
for it. I don't think it should have move speed slow resist or whatever. Like
Yeah.
I don't think it should have slow resistance as part of it. Like to me, that's an easy remove. Um, and I think that that would help a lot already because then it would make slows feel a little bit more impactful. And I think that people don't realize this yet, but like there's so many slows in the game. There's a ton, but they just like never they just don't come into play because everyone has infinite slow resist, like especially gun heroes with Fleetfoot and enduring.
Yeah, I would say you just build Fleetfoot Enduring on most gun heroes now, and you just zoom away, right? And it's it is a it is one of those things where you also don't want slows to be too powerful. And so like I understand
Yeah.
why these items exist. I do think like I agree with you. I think Fleetfoot has got a little bit too many things going for it. But if you're playing a hero and you're say hit by like one slow, maybe two slows, and suddenly you're just like, I might as well be stunned. Like that's also really not a good feeling.
Yeah.
So
Of
there
course.
has
Yeah.
to be a balance there, and I know that they're gonna hit it, but like it coming I don't know how to use another type of analogy other than like my Dota brain, but like Venomancer in Dota is a hero that is built around slowing people, and that's fine.
Mhm.
We don't really have something like that quite yet in Deadlock, but it wouldn't surprise me if we get there where there's a hero who's just basically like, I'm going to cripple you so heavily that you can't really run. Uh, and like maybe we'll get there. But um, yeah, I feel like that's
Yeah.
like a
Maybe.
specific design choice, where as opposed to like having like overstated or understated items that like make it, you know, too punishing
Yeah.
one way or the other.
I just think right now you don't have to. Okay, so I'm a big fan of having to make decisions with your items.
Yeah.
I just feel like when it comes to slow resistance, you don't have to make a
Yeah.
decision
You
with your
buy
items.
enduring speed
You
every
just you
game.
just you just stack them, and it's like you buy enduring speed Fleetfoot, and then you just have infinite slow resistance, and you don't have to ever make a decision about it. Now, I think that there needs to be a little bit more friction there. And I
Mhm.
think, for example, like there's more potential in Juggernaut. Like, why not make Juggernaut? Like, first of all, it just feels thematic. But Juggernaut to me should be the ultimate anti-slow item, where you're just like a Juggernaut, just walking forward and nothing can stop you. You know. So hey, if you have to invest in Juggernaut to get, I don't know, 60% slow resist, that's fine by me. That's a tier 4 item that you're investing. Like Juggernaut should give you this power fantasy of like, hey, you can't be slowed anymore. You know.
That's literally what
But
I
I don't
thought
think
the
Fleetfoot
item
and
was going
enduring
to be.
should, I mean, it is kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, because it has enduring, so it does give you um, that resist. But anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
that's my thoughts on that topic. So to kind of wrap up on that one, I'm kind of like, well, we are in a move speed meta. Yes, I think move speed slow is extremely strong and therefore makes most slows feel underwhelming. Like slowing bullets is not really being bought a lot, and it's actually a really good item. The problem is just like if they buy Fleetfoot enduring, then it doesn't really do enough.
Yeah.
So
That could be why we see the bullet slow just now being like a version of slowing bullets like built into every hero to try and help compensate. But I agree with you. I it is as someone who plays a lot of seven, it's very fun to play seven in a movement speed meta because boy, can no one ever catch you. You just kite around the map constantly. Uh, I don't know. There's a lot to talk about with the November update, and there's obviously a ton more to talk about with things that we would like to see in the next patch. And it's one of the topics we will be going into is like our wish list for the patch or 2026 and like things that we want to do. So that will be a future episode for sure. But as we're getting towards the end of kind of our
hmm,
first episode, I am curious,
yeah.
there's a lot still happening in the Deadlock scene, and you kind of mentioned it earlier about like some tournaments and some stuff that's going on. So I'm just curious, what's the deal?
Yeah, so we've got the Death Slam Invitational that's coming up this weekend. So December 13th and 14th. Now, for those of you that aren't aware, the Death Slam Invitational was an open tournament, so anyone could sign up. We had a 32-team qualifier, and we had 4 invited teams. So it's a North American tournament, but we did not restrict other regions from participating, meaning that teams from Europe did sign up. It's just that all the games will be played. The default server is US East, so
Yeah.
all the games will be played on US East by default. So it is a North American tournament. However, we did decide to invite a top European team. Now, originally, when we planned the tournament, we had invited Buff Enjoyers, but Buff Enjoyers disbanded. So then we decided to invite Abrahams instead. So Abraham's invited. So the 4 invited teams are Abrahams, Melee Creeps, um, Sneaky Golem, and Bunny with Clock. And then there's 4 teams that got through the qualifiers. Let me just double check all the team names from that. But it's gonna be kind of a EU versus NA showdown, as we've got
Nice.
multiple EU teams. So Abraham's got invited, right?
Yeah.
But then out of the other teams, let me just double check. So Leviathan made it through the qualifiers, just completely undefeated. So that's definitely like kind of a big thing. So the 4 teams that qualified are Leviathan, Chocolate Labubus, Cheesy Bread, and Kawaii Crew. So Leviathan's the only other EU team that qualified. There was another EU team in the qualifiers. I think they were called Loki W. I think there might have been actually 2 other EU teams. But yeah, there's 2 EU teams that didn't make it through the qualifiers. I was actually kind of expecting one of them to, but obviously they're all playing on ping, so it's a little bit harder. But yeah, so we're gonna have Leviathan, Chocolate Labubus, Cheesy Bread, Kawaii Crew. And they're going to be up against Melee Creep, Sneaky Golem, Abrahams, and Bunny with Clock. So it's going to be all the best teams in Deadlock right now, arguably. Like, I think NA and EU are the 2 strongest regions. And then after that, the other regions are kind of just a little too small right now. It's nothing against the other regions. They have great players. Like OC has great players. Asia has great players. South America has great players. But, they're just too small right now to have strong teams overall. And it's the way that I kind of see it is it's going to be it could answer the question of who is better between EU and NA, because if EU is able to win this tournament on high ping on NA servers, then they're kind of, you can't say that NA, like, that just fully closes the topic. Like, it's just, okay, EU is better if they win on NA ping. Now, if EU loses, they do kind of have this excuse of like, well, a lot of our players are on like 140, 150 ping. So it's kind of like no risk to EU. And I think for NA, a lot of NA players like don't like the fact that EU is considered better, and they've got like this kind of ego and the need to like prove like, hey, NA is not like a terrible region. We've got stuff to prove, etc. So I'm really excited. And right now, the Scrim Bucks are kind of in favor of EU.
Really
So Abraham's has
interesting. Okay.
kind of been the favorite from the scrims. They've kind of won most of the scrims they've participated in, even on ping. They've had a roster change recently as we banned ABL due to his, racist comments and behavior. And so they've subbed in Hoot for ABL. But yeah, that's happening
Okay.
December
That's a good
13th and
sub.
14th. So yeah, Hoot is obviously an incredible player. And it's funny because I've been seeing a lot of EU players in NA matchmaking as they're all warming up for this event. So now NA matchmaking is basically just EU matchmaking, as a lot of the top EU players are just kind of like invading. But yeah, tune in 2 p.m. EST this weekend, December 13th and 14th, twitch.tv/DeathyDL. It'll also be on my YouTube. But yeah, it's going to be fun.
That's really funny because I've been seeing a bunch of the EU players in the like scrim or just in like the pubs, like different streamers,
Yeah.
are just live and
Yeah.
in NA, and you'll just see like EU players in their pubs, and I couldn't figure out why. I was like, what is going on here? Like, are they just all
Yep.
like degen houring right now for because they just can't get enough? But that makes a lot more sense.
Icing on the ping.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, it's like a win-win for Europe in a way. No, even if they lose, they win. And if they win, they really win. So
Exactly.
that's nice for them. That must feel good. I guess coming up in about a week, we mentioned we're going to be trying to release episodes every week. Our next episode, we haven't really decided entirely on the topic, but we have a lot to pick from, which is fantastic. There's so much to talk about in Deadlock. So you guys can always look forward to that. Do you have anything else that you'd like to talk about before we kind of wrap up the first show?
Well, I think it's important to mention to everybody, hey, like we're available. We're going to be available on YouTube and on Spotify.
Heck yeah.
So we just made the accounts and stuff. So we'll be working on the branding and all that stuff. But yeah, the episodes will be available on YouTube and Spotify. Let us know if you'd like us to be available on any other platforms. I've never done a podcast before. I don't even know what the other platforms are, but obviously open to being on other platforms as well. Let us know if there's anything that you'd like to see different with the format of the podcast. Now, we'll have guests in the future.
Heck yeah.
So, depending, kind of like what we were talking about was like maybe one guest a month. Like we don't want to have guests all the time. but just having like prominent community figures to kind of discuss Deadlock, discuss balance, discuss new updates, like what the future is. And the last thing would be, shout out to Death Slam Academy, which is the academy that I run. Um, and we'll put a link like kind of in the description or something. But it's the place to be if you want to learn Deadlock. It's a monthly subscription, $14.99. No free trial, but we will refund you if you're not happy with it for whatever reason. We're just trying to do business the right way, and so I don't want people to sign up with a free trial, forget to cancel, get charged after. So I want to make it clear, hey, this is a paid service, but if you're unhappy for whatever reason, we will refund you. Kind of no question. I mean, we'll ask why, but like it doesn't matter what you answer. If you say, hey, I would prefer not to answer why, hey, I mean, it's all good. We'll refund you because I fully believe that we've got a great product. Other than that, no, that's about it. I mean, shout out to you as well for doing this. Kind of happened randomly, but I think it's gonna be fun.
It was started as a random Discord DM, but here we are. But yeah,
Yep.
I'm really excited. The Bear Pit is here to stay. So hopefully you guys enjoyed our first episode. And like Deathy said, if you guys enjoy it, make sure to check out the Spotify and the YouTube channels. And we will see you all back here next week for episode number 2. As always, everyone, have a wonderful evening. We'll see you that next time.
Bye.